So, hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Web3 Insights podcast series. I'm your host, Aaron Hayhurst, and today we're diving into the world of Web3 investments with a special guest who's at the forefront of funding innovation in the space. Joining us is Nelson Ryan, investment partner at Eden Block, a venture capital firm known for backing some of the most promising projects in a decentralized ecosystem. With his extensive experience in identifying and nurturing groundbreaking technologies, Nelson brings a wealth of knowledge about current trends, challenges, and opportunities in the Web3 investing space. Nelson, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks, Aaron. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. Nelson, just quickly, I don't know if you wanted to maybe just give a quick sort of brief introduction into who you are and where you've come from.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Nelson, investment partner in the team here at Eden Block. I've been in the crypto space since 2017, mostly on the investment side. Also have had the chance to work with a few different protocol teams. So previously led grants at Livepeer Grants, and also was a foundation director at the Pocket Network Foundation. So Livepeer is like a video transcoding protocol, and then Pocket is a decentralized RPC provider. And I mean, that's a little bit about me. Happy to also maybe say a few words about Eden Block.
Yeah, please
We're
do.
an early stage focused crypto fund. We invest from pre-seed to Series A. Very sort of global team. So I personally am based here in Australia, in Brisbane, but most of the team sort of spread out across Europe, the UK, and we've also got one partner in the US in New York as well.
Nice, nice, great stuff. I'm really excited about this particular episode. I mean, there's been a lot of talk in and around, the space at the moment, particularly with the way that crypto's gone, and a lot of people are, consistently asking me, how's the space doing? What sort of investments are being made? Are people still investing? Is there more of a high risk at sort of approach to the investment strategies and stuff. So yeah, really sort of excited to get into these questions. So moving into sort of the investment trends then at the moment in Web3, from your side, what are the current trends and areas of focus for investment in the Web3 space, and what factors are most important when evaluating potential investments for you?
Yeah, sure. And I think, the crypto space, like all of tech, I think has sort of gone through a bit of a shift in focus. And I think it's partly because we've also seen the growth of AI and sort of really understanding that this is going to be one of those sort of pivotal trends that will impact the whole world moving forward. And so I think as a result, there's been a lot of investors sort of trying to think ahead to how those sort of two technologies going to converge. So we've been seeing a ton of interest in the convergence of crypto and AI. At Eden Block, we've also been an investor in that space. We've invested in a team called Jensen, and also looking at a number of teams building in that space. I think that, a lot of people sort of ask the question, well, should those two technologies come together at all? Which I think is a very fair question to ask. I think what's interesting about crypto, and sort of particularly when it relates to AI, is I think one of the sort of clearest early use cases for crypto has been for incentivizing and coordinating compute. The Bitcoin network itself is one of the greatest examples, sort of incentivize this global network of computers being run around the world that secures the Bitcoin network. And since then, Ethereum and a ton of these other sort of networks have evolved in different ways. But sort of central to the design is around this idea of having this global distributed sort of network of compute. And so as a result, I think what the sort of crypto AI space is sort of asking some of these questions around can can crypto play a role in sort of opening up the sort of supply side of this sort of AI infrastructure, opening it up to sort of be a more open network as opposed to a sort of closed ecosystem controlled by
Sure.
a few large companies. And then I think there's also teams sort of experimenting with I guess sort of the idea of can we use AI with sort of some of this on-chain data to introduce sort of new use cases. I think sort of a related trend that's seeing a ton of interest at the moment is deepin. Seeing sort of a ton funding going to that space. I think it really sort of follows some of these similar ideas around using crypto to incentivize and coordinate global compute. One more sort of high profile example that is seeing a lot of traction is Helium. So Helium runs sort of like a basically decentralized telco, offering broadband and telecommunication services to people around the globe. They have
Interesting.
sort of like a quite low cost plan in the US that's getting quite a lot of traffic. And that's sort of really kind of like a mesh network with individuals who own these devices supporting this network around the world. And then I think one of the sort of bigger themes more recently has been also chain abstraction, which I think really is sort of coming to this sort of problem that the whole crypto space sort of has still of how can we make the space more competitive with the user experience of Web2 apps. And so I think as crypto sort of gone through this long infrastructure phase, we've seen more chains getting built, more developer ecosystems getting built. It has resulted in a lot of fragmentation and complexity for the end users. And so what chain abstraction is really focused on is can we rethink the user experience of crypto and blockchains so that the end user doesn't need to understand is this application on Solana? Is it on Ethereum? Do I need to have tokens on those networks? And so really sort of trying to hide away some of this sort of complexity. Web2 users don't need to understand these sort of underlying protocols when they're using Facebook or Google, right? And so I think we're definitely believers that that's how this technology is going to evolve is the end users aren't going to need to understand the nuances of how a request is being conducted. They just want to sort of use the application or make the transaction they're trying to make. So that's been another sort of key theme. Um, and yeah, and touching on the factors point as well. I think for us, one of the sort of key things in crypto is it's sort of a very emergent new industry, and as a result, I think the sort of themes and what the space is sort of focused on can shift at quite a fast pace. And so I think, like what is the case with sort of most startups, but I think especially in crypto, we really just look for strong teams that we feel can navigate a sort of rapidly changing and evolving landscape. In
Sure.
many cases, you may have these sort of fake outs where you're in a market that grows very rapidly and then that sort of shifts and moves to something else, or maybe you need to actually change your underlying infrastructure because things have moved in a different direction. So we really look for teams that can really sort of build over multiple cycles that aren't, and that's another challenge I think with crypto is that um, you do sort of have these early liquidity events, irrespective of if the project is a complete success or not yet. And so we really want to sort of back founders that have a reason to build this beyond just money. Because if they do get early liquidity, there is this incentive to maybe wait till the 4-year vesting is complete and move on. So we really want to sort of find founders that this is their sort of life's work and they're looking to build this over sort of multiple cycles and hopefully over sort of like a long multi-decade period.
Sure. And going back to the sort of crypto side of things there, um, I'm sure a lot of people listening in would be keen to sort of understand how much does the fluctuation of the crypto market affect an investor's strategy when looking at businesses to invest in, if even at all.
Yeah, and I guess I would add to this as well. So we are a VC firm, and we're investing at the earlier stages. So I think our answer to this might be different to hedge funds that are sort of more actively trading these assets on a day to
Sure.
day. I think for us, the way we look at it is probably similar to the way Web2 VCs look at this sort of IPO market. It's important for us to understand when we're making a new investment, what are the sort of comparable protocols, how are they being valued, and how much traction does this category have, and how big's the TAM. So we definitely look to those sort of factors. And I think at the same time, um, a lot of the space is very reflexive still. So because there's a lot of these use cases that are related to more sort of DeFi financial use cases, usage increases with sort of increases in price and interest in the space. And so while the space remains in this sort of cyclical trend where you get these sort of herds of new users come in these short periods of time, and they're generally when the price is sort of running up, and then you have these sort of quieter periods. So it does mean that as an investor, if you're in one of these sort of high periods, you do need to think about, okay, well, if things get quieter in the future, I need to sort of understand where I think we are in the cycle, um, and also where I think a certain sort of market segment sort of fits within that. So
Hmm.
I would say it is definitely a sort of factor of consideration, but I think for us, a lot of the sort of biggest some of the biggest success stories, you had to make the bet before it was obvious to really kind of capture
Yeah.
that upside. And so I do think it still requires having that conviction versus sort of just like making trades.
Okay, cool. No, interesting, interesting. And so beyond the financial support then, how do you and at Eden Block assist Web3 startups in achieving success? And what sort of challenges do you find are most common for new ventures in this space?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I think first and foremost, one of the things we sort of really try to achieve with our teams is to really be a trusted partner for those teams. And I think this is probably an obvious thing that most investors would say, but you know, in a space where both the team and sort of investors can have a liquidity, we really sort of try to be that partner that teams can come to with the bad news. I think it's great to and it's very easy to give investors positive updates, but much
Sure.
harder to sort of have these hard conversations of, hey, I think I need to replace someone on the team. I think we need to pivot. I think we need to sort of make major changes to the team. And so I think first and foremost, we sort of try to be a trusted partner where we can have those sort of discussions about maybe some of the hard things that come with building a startup, especially in a space like crypto where, as we kind of touched on, as the cycle sort of shifts, it can be sort of dramatic. And it does mean that sometimes teams need to radically sort of change the size of their company, for bad and sometimes for good, right? Really rapid
Yeah.
scaling, which can be difficult to manage. I think one of the other areas that we support, which is sort of quite unique, we do have a very technical team. So, most
Nice.
of our team, we have a lot of sort of crypto natives, folks that have founded startups in the space, worked with startups in the space, been smart contract auditors, and built validator businesses. And so, one way that we support our teams is we do like to really get our hands dirty and dive into the code base. So, one of our team members, Daniel, was previously smart contract auditor at Consensus and loves to sort of be able to give somewhat sort of less formal audit, having a look at the code base before sort of projects go to a full formal audit. And this really sort of allows us to provide early feedback before sort of paying an external party to do this work.
Yeah.
And we can give sort of, by looking at the code base much earlier on, we can maybe even sort of give more architectural sort of feedback or book sort of strategy in terms of the way the contracts are being designed,
Yeah.
at a time before the sort of cake is already baked, which I think is something that's quite unique. Similarly, we're an early supporter of testnets. So, given we have people like Raphael on the team who've been a validator on a number of sort of early networks. So we do sort of run infrastructure and we can sort of provide a lot of support to early networks that are in that sort of bootstrapping phase. Um, and then, yeah, I mean, I think, and then the sort of final point's really just sort of this more general support that it comes with this sort of unique elements of crypto, which is sort of thinking through managing liquidity, exchange listings, and even sort of one of the key differences with crypto versus sort of Web2 startups is once you do launch a token, you have this sort of public community that wants information from you, right? That they're assessing
Yeah.
you. The market is your sort of scorecard. And I think it's easy to sort of say that, but I think you don't kind of realize how real that is until you have people yelling at you to, make the price go up. Obviously, sort of teams can't magically do that, but it does sort of mean that teams need to be very conscious around how what's our community strategy, how we sort of going to navigate the liquidity of the sort of project, and sort of managing all these sort of work streams are related to that. So that's something, we also sort of provide support to teams on in terms of how to sort of think through these things, and even sort of making strategic intros that can kind of help push things in the right direction.
Nice. I think the two key sort of important things that you mentioned there are a partnership, and support really, especially in those early stages, and when dealing in any sort of early stage business really, it can be incredibly daunting. So to have that support, in a number of different ways, through the VC, especially the technical support early on, can be absolutely, invaluable to a lot of these businesses. Um, but I mean, looking ahead, what do you see as the biggest opportunities and potential pitfalls for investors in the Web3 space over the next few years? And um, how is Eden Block positioning itself to sort of capitalize on these opportunities whilst, navigating any risks?
Yeah, sure. I think the biggest challenge with investing in the crypto space, I think it's something I've kind of been touching on, is just this point around the sort of cyclical nature of it. I mean, public markets are notoriously difficult, right? In theory, it's so simple. You just buy when things are low, and you sell when things are high. But in the moment, I think, we're sort of seeing elements of this in the sort of this AI sort of space, and how it's evolved, and some of the volatility we've seen over the sort of coming week, the past week. Um, in the moment, I think things sort of evolve, and this sort of psyche of the collective. It's easy to sort of get caught up in these sort of in these moments. So I think the biggest thing is just keeping things simple. I think that's something that we really think about, and I think most people, if you want to get involved in the space, it's definitely something that you should strive towards. It's easy to
Nice.
sort of chase every sort of new sort of theme and trend, but I think really just sort of getting back to basics, understanding what you own, what you're investing in, and what your view is, and sort of making sure you stay disciplined in that. And I think for Eden Block, for us, that means really sort of focusing on making those long-term bets in these sort of kind of categories we have that strong conviction in, and sort of really just continuing to strive towards being consistent sort of over time in the sort of and throughout the whole sort of cycle, right? So yeah, that's kind of how we think of things. I think it's such a nascent technology, but I think we're seeing a lot of signs of things maturing, and sort of this continuous trend of more and more sophisticated players and founders sort of moving into the space. And so I do think it's important to take a long-term view, and that's something we really sort of continuously reinforce in the way we look to work with founders, and how we invest.
Nice, nice. Yeah, no, definitely sound advice. But great to hear that things are moving in the right direction. I think we can both agree the last sort of, I suppose, 18 months really have been incredibly tough, sort of within the space, and going in the direction that, of course, we all want it to potentially sort of pursue in. But I mean, from your side, what are you sort of seeing at the moment? Are there any particular projects that are standing out to you at the moment within your portfolio, or that are exciting that you sort of want to share to wrap up with?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think sort of touching on one of the earlier trends, I think, we've been particularly excited about the crypto AI space. I think, we have a sort of healthy dose of skepticism, and want to sort of see things how things will evolve. But yeah, I think sort of one bet where we've been particularly excited about has been our investment in Jensen. So yeah,
Nice.
London-based team. Yeah, in this sort of decentralized training space. So within crypto AI, we're really excited about what that team's building. And I think in general, yeah, I think we're just really excited about sort of teams working on improving the user experience of crypto. So be that sort of
Yeah,
chain
that's key.
abstraction or other approaches. We do really feel like, sort of how can we deliver an experience that the average person is going to be sort of comfortable with and can move sort of more money into the space. Yeah, I think the user experience is sort of like a key bottleneck for that. And so I'm keen to see this sort of space come together and find sort of new creative solutions to rethink that experience.
Nice. Yeah, I mean that's something that's come up a couple of times actually in terms of an overall seems to be an overall theme in terms of improving the onboarding and user experiences with a lot of businesses that I've spoken to. But you really appreciate your time, Nelson. Thank you so much for sharing your insights into the Web3 landscape. It's been fascinating to hear about the trends, the strategies that are sort of shaping the decentralized future at the moment. And for our listeners, if you're looking to stay ahead in the rapidly evolving world of Web3, do make sure to follow us, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and tune in for more conversations with industry leaders like Nelson. This episode is just the beginning of what promises to be a series full of invaluable information for anyone interested in the decentralized space. Um, Nelson, thanks so much again for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you on.
Awesome, Aaron. Yeah, thanks for having me.